Once upon a time, there was a beautiful witch named Cho Hong. She fell head over heels for a total player, and the heartbreak was so intense, it zapped away all her magical powers. She must find her true love to break this curse, and reclaim her magic before being banished to the fiery depths of hell. Easy, right? Wrong. Cho Hong, despite her magical predicament, still had to pay the bills. She worked as a delivery girl, but even on the job, she refused to sacrifice style. Imagine this, she's balancing a towering stack of food trays on her head, but effortlessly struts down the street in a pair of eye-catching red high heels. Heads turn, jaws drop. This girl's got it going on. Suddenly, chaos erupts. A frantic mother, distracted for just a moment, watches in horror as her baby's stroller rolls down a steep hill. But Cho Hong, ever the stylish sorceress, even without her powers, snaps her fingers. Time freezes. The baby is safe. For now. Meanwhile, in another part of town, we meet Sung Tae. He's ridiculously handsome, rich, and a major company CEO. He's a martial arts enthusiast. Always training, always striving. But his real obsession? Finding a specific old house, built 25 years ago. A place etched in his childhood memories. His exasperated secretary is tired of this daily wild goose chase, driven by a vague, sentimental image. But then, a breakthrough. While discussing the search, Sung Tae spots the house in a stack of his company's promotional materials. It's now a small porridge restaurant. Just as they process this revelation, the secretary slams on the brakes. Cho Hong emerges from seemingly nowhere, right in front of the car, giving them the ultimate death glare. They're terrified, but she's completely unscathed. The car, however, totaled. Remember, she's a witch, even without her magic. She's got something. Cho Hong lives with her grandmother and aunt, who are also witches. When she arrives home late from her delivery shift, her grandma throws a sharp knife her way. A playful and slightly terrifying greeting. Cho Hong dodges it effortlessly, then uses her residual magic to chop vegetables and wash dishes. Suddenly, a noise. Both Cho Hong and her grandma jump, thinking they've been discovered. False alarm. It's just her aunt, equally startled. Witch life, am I right? Back to Sung Tae. He's digging deep into the history of Cho Hong's family porridge restaurant. It's a local legend, thriving for over 50 years, despite economic downturns and zero advertising. The place is always packed, yet rumors swirl. Are they secretly spiking the porridge with something magical? Even stranger, no matter how busy they are, they close promptly at 6 p.m., collecting every single spoon and locking the doors. Sung Tae's secretary, determined to prove his investigative skills, has gathered photos of the three women living in the house, but the images are blurry, almost otherworldly. Sung Tae is frustrated. These women are like ghosts, living off the grid, shrouded in secrecy. He needs to know more. He has to find out their secrets. When Sung Tae heard their ages, he doubted they were the people he was looking for. However, he couldn't shake his curiosity about what happened after 6 p.m., when the porridge shop mysteriously closed its doors. Behind those locked doors, the three witches indulged in a late-night feast, followed by a lively card game. Cho Hong's grandmother warned her sternly to avoid all contact with humans. Using her powers to help them, even with the best intentions, risks exposure and a dire fate. The next day, Cho Hong was at the supermarket. Another shopper blocked her access to an item she needed. As Cho Hong reached over, her grocery basket bumped into Sung Tae. He instinctively pushed her away, but something strange happened. Suddenly, he found himself sprawled on the floor, humiliated, with everyone staring. Cho Hong, recognizing him as the guy who almost ran her over, shot him a withering glare and walked away. Sung Tae, still gathering his dignity and groceries, continued his search for the porridge shop's address. Meanwhile, Cho Hong was heading home, blissfully unaware of Sung Tae trailing behind her. She assumed he was some kind of creep, and her annoyance grew with every step. Sung Tae finally arrived at the porridge shop, stunned. It was a perfect match to the house in his memories. But before he could process his discovery, a bucket of water, courtesy of Cho Hong, drenched him from head to toe. Furious and soaking wet, Sung Tae retreated, vowing to investigate this bizarre establishment and its even more bizarre inhabitants. That night, the owner of a nearby chicken restaurant, envious of the porridge shop's success, decided to steal their secret recipe. While Cho Hong was outside taking a phone call, he snuck in and hid, recording the cooking process on his phone. He witnessed an extraordinary display of culinary magic. The three witches added mysterious ingredients, creating flashes of light and swirling gusts of wind that lifted objects into the air. The intruder, caught in the supernatural whirlwind, stumbled and made a noise. The witches stopped, their spell broken. Terrified, the chicken restaurant owner begged for mercy. Cho Hong's grandmother calmly approached him, placed her hand on his head, and then stuffed him into a sack. They loaded the sack into their vehicle and drove off. Sung Tae, watching from a hidden vantage point, witnessed the entire unsettling scene, his suspicion and intrigue intensifying. This porridge shop was definitely not your average eatery. One peaceful weekend morning, the three witches were enjoying a leisurely cup of tea when a persistent knocking interrupted their tranquility. Despite a close for the weekend sign, someone was determined to get in. Cho Hong opened the door to find Sung Tae, who casually announced he was the new building owner. Surprise! Sung Tae's secretary confirmed the purchase, leaving the witches speechless. Cho Hong's aunt produced their ancient crumbling lease agreement, but it was useless. The previous owner had passed away 3 years prior, leaving them with no legal recourse. Sung Tae gave them a 2-week eviction notice. Cho Hong, furious, confronted him, accusing him of petty revenge. Sung Tae, ever the businessman, offered a solution: a hefty 100 million won deposit and a monthly rent of 20 million won. The witches were stunned. This was highway robbery. To legally acquire such a large sum, Cho Hong's grandmother declared they'd have to live and work like ordinary humans. Longer hours, no more relaxing evenings. Their 50 years of business had only provided enough for a comfortable, magical lifestyle, not exorbitant rent. The grandmother and aunt embarked on a humiliating journey to secure a bank loan. Their age and lack of collateral made them laughingstocks, rejected by every bank. The grandmother, enraged, couldn't resist teaching a few rude loan officers a magical lesson. Meanwhile, Cho Hong met with her crush, a bank employee. He had been pursuing her, assuming she would inherit the seemingly successful porridge shop. Learning about the loan and the family's precarious situation, his interest vanished. He made a hasty excuse and left. Cho Hong, naive and hopeful, returned home and told her grandmother and aunt about her boyfriend and his promised assistance. Her grandmother was skeptical, warning her about the dangers of trusting humans. She reminded Cho Hong that her magic was fading, a consequence of her blind faith in a man who clearly didn't reciprocate her feelings. Their efforts to restore her powers in that specific location would be wasted if she continued down this path. Cho Hong, blinded by love, accused her grandmother of not understanding the power of romantic love. The following day, while on her delivery route, Cho Hong spotted her boyfriend and decided to follow him. To her horror, she discovered him canoodling with a much older, unattractive woman, the wealthy owner of a pig's feet restaurant. His betrayal was clear. Heartbroken and enraged, Cho Hong let out a scream so powerful it rattled nearby objects. She collapsed on the sidewalk, sobbing uncontrollably. That evening, Sung Tae, driving home, noticed Cho Hong's distraught figure. He ordered his secretary to stop the car and rushed after her. He found her sitting outside a convenience store, drunk and despondent. He tried to persuade her to go home, but she lashed out, accusing all humans, including him, of being untrustworthy. Sung Tae retorted, "Aren't you human too?" Cho Hong stood up, swaying slightly, and whispered, "I'm a witch." Sung Tae was taken aback. As Cho Hong stumbled and fell, he sighed, "This isn't a drama. I'm not carrying you home." Yet moments later, there she was, on his back. As he grumbled about taking a shortcut through a dark alley, the streetlights suddenly flickered on, leaving him bewildered. The next morning, Cho Hong woke up with a pounding headache. She instinctively snapped her fingers, attempting to conjure a glass of water with her magic. Nothing happened. Just then, Sung Tae appeared, demanding she take responsibility for her drunken antics the previous night. Apparently, she had not only headbutted him, but also gnawed on his leg and refused to let go of his shoe. Mortified, Cho Hong mumbled an apology and quickly fled. The memory of her embarrassing behavior haunted her. Something felt different. Cho Hong snuck back into her house, her heart pounding. She checked her wrist, her blood running cold. Her witch's mark, the symbol of her magical powers, was gone. She frantically tried to use her magic in the kitchen, but nothing worked. Her powers had vanished. Her aunt appeared, gently reminding her of the consequences of placing her trust in a deceitful human. The loss of her mark was the price of her broken heart. Cho Hong, terrified, asked what would happen now. Her grandmother explained that without her powers, she would be banished to a dark, cold, and filthy realm. A hellish world where she would lose all memory of who she was, surrounded by screams and demons. A living nightmare. Cho Hong was consumed by fear. That night, under the cover of darkness, Cho Hong crept into the storage room, searching for a valuable magical artifact. She was desperate, and she was about to do something drastic. To conceal her loss of magic, Cho Hong pretended to embrace human life, carrying her delivery trays without the aid of her powers. Her aunt, observing her niece's sudden struggle, found this very peculiar. Back at the restaurant, Sung Tae arrived with a revised lease agreement. He'd lower the rent under certain conditions, the most significant being that he would move into the building with them. The witches vehemently protested. Cho Hong's aunt suggested wiping Sung Tae's memory and sending him overseas, just like they did with the nosy chicken restaurant owner. But her grandmother argued that such drastic measures risked exposure. To increase revenue, they raised prices, extended their business hours, and even agreed to a televised interview. Faced with questions about the rumors of her superhuman strength, handling boiling soup barehanded, carrying enormous sacks of rice with one hand, Cho Hong's grandmother vehemently denied everything, insisting she was just an ordinary woman. However, when the interviewer produced a photo of Cho Hong balancing 10 trays of food on her head while wearing high heels and texting on her phone, the grandmother lost her composure and chased Cho Hong around the set, turning the interview into a chaotic mess. Later, an actress attempting to recreate Cho Hong's balancing act was nearly injured by a mischievous coworker, but Cho Hong's grandmother subtly used her magic to prevent the accident. Cho Hong, witnessing this, was surprised. Her grandmother had strictly forbidden any displays of magic in front of humans. That night, Cho Hong, clutching a precious object, stood before a dilapidated pawn shop. Inside resided a banished dark witch, a being who dealt in forbidden magic, unconcerned about the consequences. Cho Hong, trembling, confessed her lost powers and pleaded for help. The dark witch erupted in laughter, a sound that summoned dark clouds and crackling lightning. Cho Hong offered a silver plate as payment, but the dark witch scoffed. She desired objects imbued with human memories, things humans discarded but held a different kind of value. The dark witch's eyes lit up when she saw the necklace Cho Hong wore, a keepsake from her mother. Touching it, she saw a vision of Cho Hong's mother, consumed by flames, a victim of her reckless love affair. This was the kind of tragic energy that fueled the dark witch's magic. The dark witch agreed to help, giving Cho Hong 3 weeks to reclaim her powers. Failure would result in a horrifying transformation, the loss of her youth, beauty, and vitality, leaving her a grotesque creature condemned to a shadowy existence. Terrified of the dark witch's prophecy, Cho Hong accepted a pair of enchanted elf ears. These magical ears would help her identify her true love. By obtaining his heart, metaphorically of course, she could restore her powers permanently. Eager to test them out, Cho Hong hit the streets, scanning a group of handsome men. She put on the elf ears and heard the distinct clanging of a scrap metal collector's cart. So much for instant romance. Meanwhile, Sung Tae had moved into the porridge shop, much to the witch's chagrin. He installed security cameras and imposed a list of house rules, but the grandmother forbade him from entering the storage room and kitchen, their sacred magical spaces. Sung Tae's suspicion grew. Elsewhere, our second male lead, a struggling comic book artist, was daydreaming about the mysterious man living in Cho Hong's house when his father interrupted. Upon learning his son had abandoned his civil service exam preparations for a pipe dream, the father was furious. However, seeing his son's passion, he reluctantly agreed to support him, reminding him that he wouldn't be able to do so forever. The son, touched but burdened by his father's words, felt a pang of guilt. Back at the porridge shop, Sung Tae, while texting his secretary, noticed Cho Hong trying to avoid someone. It was her no-good ex-boyfriend, who had tracked her down to sign the finalized loan papers. Cho Hong angrily told him to throw them away. She didn't need his help anymore. But the ex, concerned about his professional reputation, refused. He accused her of seeking revenge for their breakup and berated her for deceiving him about her family's supposed wealth. Cho Hong, despite everything, thanked him for showing her what it felt like to love someone. She wished he hadn't lied about the other woman, the lie that cost her everything. But she genuinely hoped he would treat his new girlfriend well. The ex, thick-faced, denied everything and continued to pressure her to sign the loan documents. Sung Tae, witnessing this injustice, finally intervened, punching the ex and pulling Cho Hong away from the unpleasant scene. Annoyed, Cho Hong told Sung Tae to mind his own business. He retorted that he didn't want to get involved, but certain circumstances compelled him. It dawned on him that her distress was because of that jerk. He told her to avoid doing anything that would draw his attention again, then walked off, leaving Cho Hong speechless and slightly embarrassed. They both returned to the house in a huff. Cho Hong's aunt, sensing the tension, instantly knew they'd fought. She voiced her suspicions about Sung Tae's sudden desire to live with them. Her grandmother dismissed her concerns, attributing it to his supposed lack of freedom in his own life. Meanwhile, Cho Hong, tossing and turning, tried to use the elf ears. She heard a noise outside but found no one when she opened the door. The culprit was Sung Tae, investigating the locked storage room. A fragmented memory flashed before him, a cloaked figure carrying a severely injured child. He couldn't quite grasp what it meant, but it left him uneasy. The next morning, noticing her fading beauty, a side effect of her dwindling magic, Cho Hong put extra effort into her appearance before heading out on an important mission. She and Sung Tae had a near collision on the stairs, their mutual animosity palpable. Sung Tae was surprised to find the grandmother and aunt fussing over him, preparing a lavish breakfast, despite claiming they had nothing to eat. Meanwhile, Jae Wook, troubled by his father's disappointment, visited his late mother's grave for solace, and then drowned his sorrows at a bar. At the same time, Cho Hong, exhausted from a fruitless day of searching for her true love with the elf ears, waited for the bus. On the bus, Jae Wook spotted Cho Hong and loudly offered her his seat. His enthusiasm was hard to resist. He bombarded her with questions about the man living in her house, urging her to kick him out. Before Cho Hong could explain, Jae Wook, drunk, passed out, his head landing on her shoulder. Despite herself, Cho Hong found him undeniably attractive. A flicker of something akin to interest sparked within her. Cho Hong ended up carrying the drunken Jae Wook home, wondering how many years this guy had shaved off her life. She was annoyed when his mumbling revealed he wasn't as unconscious as he seemed, making her exhausting efforts seem even more pointless. But seeing his pathetic state, she softened. Jae Wook, in a moment of drunken vulnerability, asked her whether he should abandon his dreams for his filial duty. Cho Hong encouraged him to pursue his passions while he still had them. Just as the atmosphere shifted to something almost romantic, Jae Wook noticed the elf ears, mistaking them for dried squid. As he tried to put one in his mouth, Cho Hong snatched them back, resulting in a clumsy tumble, landing them on top of each other. At that very moment, Sung Tae arrived at Jae Wook's door, drawn by a promotional flyer. Seeing the scene, he muttered about interrupting and left, visibly irritated. Later, running into Cho Hong, Sung Tae unleashed a torrent of accusations. He called her a love-life multi-level marketer, jumping from one man to another. He berated himself for worrying about her like a meddling busybody. Cho Hong, in response, asked if he liked her. Was he jealous of her being with a younger, more handsome man? If he liked her, he should just say it instead of picking fights. Besides, he wasn't her type anyway. Sung Tae, stung by her words, vehemently denied any romantic interest, loudly proclaiming that she wasn't his type. Both his secretary and Jae Wook, observing the scene from above, were completely baffled by their bizarre exchange. Cho Hong's question kept Sung Tae awake all night, replaying in his mind. The next day, even the mere mention of Cho Hong by his secretary sent him into a spiral of denial, insisting he didn't like anyone. The grandmother and aunt, noticing Cho Hong's heavy makeup and stray gray hair signs of her fading magic, dragged her into a room for an intervention. They confirmed their worst fears. Her witch's mark was gone. They also discovered the dark witch's elf ears. The grandmother declared that Cho Hong must find her destined love and kiss him to reactivate her mark. With his heart again, metaphorically, her powers would be immune to betrayal. Time was running out for Cho Hong's fading youth and beauty. She desperately searched for her destined love. Jae Wook, spotting her, called out, telling her to wait for him. As he approached, the elf's ears began to tingle. Cho Hong's destined love was near, but in the crowded street, Jae Wook struggled to locate her. Just as panic set in, a hand landed on her shoulder. It was Sung Tae. Startled, Cho Hong dropped her phone. Assuming he was her destiny, she cried out in frustration, "Why you?" As Jae Wook searched the crowd for Cho Hong, finding only her dropped phone, Sung Tae pulled her aside. He apologized for his earlier outburst, admitting that she made him irrational. He then asked her, point blank, what she thought of him as a man. While Sung Tae poured his heart out, Cho Hong, fixated on her mission, was only thinking about kissing her destined love. She barely registered his words, leaving him humiliated and scrambling for an excuse to leave. But Cho Hong stopped him, suggesting lunch. Or at least, that's what she meant to say. Instead, she blurted out, "Let's find a place to kiss." The awkwardness was palpable. Sung Tae, feigning an urgent call from his secretary, made a hasty escape, even though his secretary confirmed there was no emergency. In the car, Sung Tae replayed his confession, and Cho Hong's oblivious response, cringing so hard he yelled in frustration, scaring his secretary. When he asked his secretary, "What do you think of me as a man?" Secretary Kim was thoroughly creeped out. Meanwhile, a dejected Cho Hong returned home, chugging fish sauce straight from the bottle. Her grandmother and aunt were ecstatic to learn that Sung Tae was her destined love, right under their noses. But Cho Hong described their hostile relationship, mentioning the fights and the biting incident, leaving her grandmother aghast. They hatched a plan to engineer Cho Hong's first kiss with Sung Tae. Just then, Jae-wook arrived, relieved to find her safe. He returned her phone, fearing she'd been kidnapped. Cho Hong teased him, asking what he would do if she had been. Jae-wook, attempting a confession, mumbled about no one delivering him porridge if she were gone. Cho Hong, unimpressed, walked inside. On the drive home, Sung Tae asked his secretary about his love life. Secretary Kim enthusiastically described his relationship, admitting that despite initial dislike, he'd fallen in love. Sung Tae, listening, began to recognize his feelings for Cho Hong. Secretary Kim, however, misinterpreted this as further evidence of his boss's affection for him. At the porridge shop, the witches prepared a romantic dinner for Cho Hong and Sung Tae, but he arrived home late. They greeted him with forced smiles, then made excuses to leave the two alone. Cho Hong, trying to be friendly, offered him a drink, but Sung Tae remained aloof. The next day, Sung Tae tossed an invitation into the trash. The same invitation found its way to Jae-wook and Secretary Kim. When Jae-wook arrived for a meeting with Sung Tae, the two men, now romantic rivals, exchanged tense glances. Sung Tae, noticing the invitation from Jae-wook, canceled his business trip and returned to the porridge shop. The invitation was for the restaurant's 50th anniversary VIP party, a thinly veiled scheme to get Cho Hong her first kiss. Sung Tae, seeing a dapper Jae-wook arrive, felt a pang of jealousy. Both men, however, were captivated by Cho Hong's stunning appearance. The anniversary celebration began with a lively dinner. Jae-wook showered Cho Hong with attention, much to Sung Tae's annoyance. After dinner, Cho Hong's grandmother announced games with valuable prizes. Sung Tae initially declined to participate, prompting an outburst from his secretary. The secretary, eager to win prizes for his upcoming wedding, accused Sung Tae of sabotaging everyone's efforts. Provoked, Sung Tae decided to compete, much to his secretary's delight. The first game involved picking teams by drawing colored balls. As prearranged, Cho Hong and Sung Tae became partners, leaving Jae-wook with Secretary Kim and the grandmother and aunt as a team. The first game was a Pocky game, driven by prize-winning ambition. The secretary aggressively started the game with his partner. Sung Tae, also aiming for victory, leaned in towards Cho Hong, only to be startled by the secretary's sudden shriek. The grandmother and aunt, determined to prevent the secretary from winning, strategically ended their turn with the shortest Pocky stick, winning the round. The second game involved balancing on a shrinking newspaper. The losing team would have to kiss. Cho Hong tried to subtly use magic to make Sung Tae lose his balance, but before she could succeed, Jae-wook, fearing his crush would kiss someone else, intentionally lost, much to the frustration of the competitive Secretary Kim. The grandmother and aunt once again emerged victorious. For the final game, each team had to chug a glass of beer. The grandmother added a touch of kissing magic to Sung Tae's beer. However, before they could start, the ever-vigilant Secretary Kim noticed the uneven beer levels. Grabbing Sung Tae's glass, the one with the least beer, despite everyone's protests, he ended up drunk, repeatedly confessing his love for Sung Tae. Not only did the kiss plan fail, but the witches also lost their television to Secretary Kim's ambition. The grandmother and aunt concluded that Sung Tae clearly had no interest in Cho Hong. Sung Tae, however, was reliving the day's events with a secret smile. Later that night, he wandered out of his room, only to trip on the stairs and lose consciousness. Cho Hong and the others rushed to his side. As the grandmother instructed her sister to fetch medicine, they realized Sung Tae's unconscious state presented a golden opportunity for Cho Hong to steal a kiss and restore her mark. A chaotic struggle ensued. Just then, Sung Tae woke up with a yell. Cho Hong stammered that she was merely attempting CPR. Sung Tae, trying to stand, realized he'd sprained his ankle. In his pain, he noticed a familiar baseball. Meanwhile, Sung Tae's mother recalled a kidnapping incident 20 years prior. Sung Tae had been abducted for several days, returning with no memory of the ordeal and a mysteriously healed chest wound. Ever since he'd suffered from recurring nightmares and required ongoing therapy. Seeing Sung Tae risking further injury in his obsessive search for a childhood trinket, Cho Hong's grandmother scolded him, urging him to go home. Sung Tae insisted he needed just a little more time. Outside, Sung Tae's mother, mistaking the witches for maids, ordered Secretary Kim to find younger, more attractive replacements. The witches were offended. Cho Hong's grandmother worried that the increased foot traffic would expose their true identities. She suggested kicking Sung Tae out after Cho Hong regained her powers. Cho Hong protested, reminding her that he was the landlord. Her grandmother warned her against getting emotionally attached to humans. Later, Cho Hong brought Sung Tae porridge. Seeing him asleep, she leaned in for a stolen kiss, but he opened his eyes, catching her in the act. He pinned her down, declaring that while she might be casual about kissing, he wasn't. A kiss, for him, was the start of something romantic, and meaningful only with the right person. Cho Hong mocked him, suggesting he was just a bad kisser making excuses. She flounced out, leaving Sung Tae flustered. Outside, however, she cringed at her boldness. Cho Hong delivered porridge to Jae Wook, asking him how to know if someone was in love and how to win a man's heart. Pretending she was asking for her aunt, Jae Wook explained that when a man is truly in love, he's captivated by the woman, no matter what she does, just like he was with Cho Hong. But she was oblivious to his affections. Discouraged, Cho Hong doubted she could ever win Sung Tae's heart, given his cold demeanor. But the thought of a hellish existence, disfigured and forgotten, spurred her on. That night, Sung Tae resumed his search for the baseball, only to be terrified by Cho Hong's aunt in the dark, tripping and falling again. The next day, Secretary Kim updated Sung Tae on work matters and shared a crucial discovery. The porridge shop had maintained the same recipe for 50 years, never closing except on weekends. But 25 years ago, there was a single-day closure during a rainstorm. The person who saved Sung Tae from his childhood accident was still hospitalized, and the accident occurred near the porridge shop. Connecting these strange coincidences with Sung Tae's fragmented memories, Secretary Kim concluded that the porridge shop was not what it seemed, citing disappearances and unexplained events. Terrified, he suspected human trafficking, especially with Sung Tae now injured. Just then, Cho Hong's grandmother entered with porridge. Fearing his investigative photos would be discovered, Secretary Kim threw himself on top of Sung Tae to conceal them. When the grandmother offered to apply a traditional remedy to Sung Tae's ankle, Secretary Kim frantically intervened, whispering about its safety and repeatedly obstructing her efforts. Sung Tae, annoyed, dismissed his secretary, who then used the TV he'd supposedly won as an excuse to stay. The witches watched in frustration as Secretary Kim drove off with their TV, their carefully laid plans ruined. That evening, the grandmother instructed Cho Hong to take food to Sung Tae's room and work her magic. But Sung Tae came downstairs, wanting to eat with everyone. As they chatted, Sung Tae's phone rang. Cho Hong offered to fetch it, since he was injured. In his room, she discovered photos and documents related to her family's porridge shop, raising her suspicions. At dinner, the grandmother asked Sung Tae why he chose to buy their building. He explained his childhood connection, mentioning a visit followed by a mysterious closure. Cho Hong's aunt quickly stated they'd never closed, prompting a shared look between the two witches. As if recalling an unpleasant incident, the grandmother covered, blaming a flood that closed all businesses, claiming she couldn't remember who was there that day. Sung Tae's curiosity intensified. Later, the grandmother and aunt, unable to sleep, discussed a past incident they'd rather forget, now suspicious of Sung Tae's behavior. Cho Hong, equally restless, wondered about Sung Tae's motives and the events of that rainy night. She resolved to never see him again after securing her powers. Sung Tae meanwhile snuck out, searching for the baseball. Cho Hong caught him, demanding an explanation. He confessed his desire to confirm his memories, to distinguish reality from dreams, apologizing for his deception. Suddenly, the grandmother appeared. Cho Hong hid Sung Tae in the kitchen. After she left, Cho Hong told him to wait until the other witches were asleep. As she turned to leave, Sung Tae grabbed her hand and kissed her, suggesting they start a romantic relationship. They shared a sweet, passionate kiss. At the dark witch's pawn shop, a potion bottle shattered, a sign that something significant had occurred. The next morning, Cho Hong was unusually cheerful, singing and dancing. The grandmother and aunt, assuming her fading magic was affecting her mind, urged her to secure another kiss from Sung Tae. Cho Hong casually revealed she'd already kissed him, but feigned other reasons for her happiness. Remembering their plan to discard him, Sung Tae, noticing her cheerful demeanor, asked if she'd slept well. Fearing discovery, Cho Hong acted annoyed, accusing him of being overly concerned. She retreated to her room, leaving a confused and irritated Sung Tae and two bewildered witches. Cho Hong snuck breakfast into Sung Tae's room, explaining her desire to keep their relationship secret, at least for now. Before Sung Tae could respond, Cho Hong's aunt arrived with another breakfast tray. Assuming he was hungry, Cho Hong, hiding behind the door, got smacked in the face, resulting in a bloody nose. The aunt, seeing the breakfast already there, accused Sung Tae of hiding food and stormed off. Sung Tae rushed to Cho Hong's side, tending to her bloody nose. Instead of pain, Cho Hong giggled, delighted by his concern. He caught a glimpse of her witch's mark faintly glowing beneath her hair. Later, Cho Hong, recalling their kiss, tried to use her magic. Nothing. Checking the mirror, relieved her youthful appearance remained. She asked her grandmother how long it took for powers to return after the kiss. The grandmother explained it should be instantaneous, leaving Cho Hong bewildered. Meanwhile, she received a lengthy text from Sung Tae, outlining his strict dating rules. Cho Hong, unimpressed, thought he sounded like he was giving orders to an employee. She also received a sweet message from a lovesick Jae Wook, which she ignored. Sung Tae received a call from the caretaker of the man who saved him, a man who had been in a coma for 25 years. At the porridge shop, the witches, worried about Cho Hong's dwindling time, concocted a powerful love potion to force a kiss, a potion strong enough to affect Sung Tae's mind. Cho Hong, worried about the side effects, tried to warn Sung Tae as they offered him tea, but he didn't notice. He asked to speak with her privately. In his room, Sung Tae apologized for arriving home late due to a meeting. He asked about his dating rules. Cho Hong criticized their rigidity, even mentioning her ex to make him jealous. Seeing his reaction, she kissed him. Sung Tae, caught up in the moment, kissed her back passionately. The grandmother and aunt, entering with the tea, witnessed the scene and quietly retreated, pleased that Cho Hong had seemingly completed her mission. The next day, Cho Hong, while making deliveries, wondered when her powers would return. She received a text from Sung Tae, confirming a date for 6 p.m., making her smile. She then noticed the unusually intense heat. Suddenly, in front of Jae Wook, she collapsed, leaving him panicked and unsure of what to do. Seeing Cho Hong lifeless, Jae Wook performed CPR without hesitation and rushed her to the hospital. He frantically told the doctors about her sudden collapse, pale face, and stopped breathing. But the doctors found her vitals normal. After they left, Cho Hong's body glowed, causing the lights to flicker. Her color and vitality returned. Jae Wook, still worried, insisted on further tests, but they were both astonished by her sudden recovery. Meanwhile, Sung Tae waited impatiently for Cho Hong at their date location. He called, but she didn't answer, having left her phone at Jae Wook's after fainting. Jae Wook, deeply concerned, confessed his feelings for Cho Hong, admitting it took him 2 years to realize he was in love. He reminded her of their shared childhood, how she always protected him from bullies, a memory Cho Hong couldn't recall. He asked her to consider his feelings, promising to wait for her answer. They playfully chased each other outside her house, a scene Sung Tae witnessed from his car. Furious, Sung Tae confronted them, demanding Cho Hong come with him. Jae Wook questioned his authority over her. Sung Tae told Cho Hong to clarify their relationship with Jae Wook, then stormed off. Cho Hong apologized to Jae Wook and followed Sung Tae. Inside, Sung Tae exploded, having waited 3 hours, unable to ask her family about her whereabouts, only to see her playing with another man. He wouldn't accept any excuses. If she continued to be so careless with his feelings, they needed to reevaluate their relationship. Hurt, Cho Hong left without explanation. Sung Tae then learned about her collapse and Jae Wook's help, instantly regretting his harsh words. He went to her room, but the grandmother and aunt intercepted him. Later, while brushing her hair, Cho Hong instinctively snapped her fingers for the brush. Her magic was back. Overjoyed, she cried out in happiness. The next morning, Sung Tae's concern was met with Cho Hong's cold shoulder. She stormed off, but he followed her. He asked for her forgiveness. Cho Hong, playfully, demanded a song and dance. Despite his best efforts, he could only manage the national anthem and a military march. Charmed by his awkward attempts, Cho Hong hugged him, apologizing for making him worry. They reconciled. However, Cho Hong began avoiding Jae Wook, despite his continued concern. He confessed that she was like a witch, having bewitched his heart. He even recalled how, as children, the mere snap of her fingers would injure his bullies. Though she had no memory of him, Jae Wook was smitten, convinced their reunion was destiny. He even brought up their accidental kiss during CPR. This, combined with the elf ears tingling in Jae Wook's presence, and the restoration of her powers after his kiss, led Cho Hong to a startling realization. Jae Wook, not Sung Tae, was her destined love. Confused and conflicted, Cho Hong sought out the Dark Witch. She questioned whether she could choose to love someone other than her destined match. The Dark Witch cautioned her, explaining that humans, upon discovering her true nature, would likely reject her, leading to another devastating betrayal. Her destined love, however, would accept her, witch and all, remaining loyal and devoted. As Cho Hong left, the Dark Witch's parting words echoed in her ears. Be wary of human love. It is fickle and dangerous. Torn between two men, Cho Hong wrestled with her conflicting emotions. Meanwhile, Secretary Kim diligently continued his investigation into the porridge shop. Focusing on Cho Hong, he uncovered her mysterious past. No parents. Appearing seemingly out of nowhere as a baby under the care of two elderly women, he viewed her childhood delivery work as child exploitation, assuming the witches, being from a different time, were ignorant of child labor laws. The truth was that Cho Hong had always wanted to help. In middle school, she'd used magic to defend a bullied classmate, an incident that frightened the other students and led to a series of school transfers, culminating in her expulsion. She'd been a bright student with a promising future, attracting sponsors who recognized her extraordinary abilities, and even receiving love confessions. However, the witches, fiercely protective of her identity and powers, kept her isolated from the human world. For 25 years, her life revolved solely around the porridge shop and her family. Sung Tae, learning about Cho Hong's isolated upbringing, felt a surge of empathy. Arriving home, he found her waiting outside. Seeing the witches were absent, he pulled her into a warm embrace. Cho Hong, momentarily lost in his affection, abruptly pushed him away, remembering the Dark Witch's warning. She retreated to her room, trying to convince herself that Sung Tae wasn't her destiny. But the memory of their shared kisses and embraces brought a blush to her cheeks. Just then, Sung Tae entered, noticing her flushed face. Concerned, he assumed she was unwell, worried that she was pushing herself too hard with the deliveries after her recent collapse. Despite Cho Hong's insistence that she was fine, he held her close, promising to take care of her, to shield her from hardship. As they embraced, a knock startled them. It was Cho Hong's aunt, searching for mosquito repellent. Sung Tae quickly hid behind the door. The aunt began to speak about him, but Cho Hong swiftly interrupted, ushering her out of the room and back to bed. Alone again, Cho Hong and Sung Tae exchanged a look, a silent acknowledgement of their deepening connection and the secret they now shared. The next day, a concerned Sung Tae summoned a medical team to the porridge shop to examine Cho Hong. After a thorough checkup, the doctor declared Cho Hong perfectly healthy and then turned to Sung Tae, suggesting he might need an examination. His diagnosis? Love sickness. Cho Hong, secretly delighted, beamed. Cho Hong's aunt pulled her aside, grilling her about their relationship. Relieved she'd chosen her destined love, the aunt promised to keep their secret from the grandmother, adding that anyone else would have been shipped overseas on a smuggling boat. Human love, she warned, was a dangerous, addictive thing. Cho Hong felt a pang of anxiety. Later, Cho Hong found Sung Tae in his room and hugged him from behind. He reacted defensively, throwing her off. He explained his sensitivity to being approached from behind, stemming from his childhood trauma. Cho Hong then noticed the documents about her family's past, the same ones she'd seen before. She assumed he was vetting her, judging her suitability based on her background and lack of education. Before Sung Tae could explain, she stormed off, hurt and angry. Just then, Jae Wook arrived, invited by the grandmother and aunt, who were intrigued by his comic about a witch and a ladle. They welcomed him warmly, inviting him upstairs for a meal. Sung Tae, witnessing this, joined them, demanding the same treatment. It turned out Jae Wook's comic was inspired by his childhood crush on Cho Hong, a fictionalized expression of his unrequited feelings. The witches were relieved. Sung Tae, however, dismissed it as a childish fantasy. Jae Wook, undeterred, declared Cho Hong was like a witch, her mysterious beauty captivating him. The grandmother and aunt gasped. Annoyed, Cho Hong told him to eat and stop talking. Jae Wook teased that she was probably embarrassed by his confession. Sung Tae froze, staring intently at Cho Hong. The witches, equally stunned, demanded to know her response. Jae Wook said he would wait. Cho Hong announced she would answer immediately. She thanked him for his feelings but rejected him. Sung Tae felt a surge of relief, quickly replaced by confusion when Cho Hong declared she was giving up on men entirely. She accused them of being two-faced, pretending to be nice while secretly digging into her past. She stormed off, leaving a satisfied grandmother and a heartbroken Jae Wook staring at Sung Tae. That night, Sung Tae texted Cho Hong, wanting to see her before his early morning business trip. When she didn't reply, he opened his door to find her standing there. They went outside to talk. Cho Hong demanded the truth. Sung Tae finally revealed his childhood abduction. He'd returned after 3 days, but the perpetrator was never caught. His driver, the only witness, ended up in a coma after an accident. No one knew what happened during those 3 days. Sung Tae remembered a heavy downpour, a knife at his chest, a figure in a raincoat, and a house with a pointed roof, just like the porridge shop. That was all he could recall. Understanding Sung Tae's lifelong fear and the reasons behind his aloofness and defensive reactions, Cho Hong embraced him, tears streaming down her face. Despite her lingering doubts, her heart ached for him. He responded with a tender kiss, comforting the vulnerable witch in his arms. The next day, as Sung Tae prepared to leave for his business trip, Secretary Kim, noticing Cho Hong's increasing beauty, offered to set her up with his younger brother. A jealous Sung Tae quickly shut that down, sending his secretary off to work. Cho Hong watched him leave with a loving gaze. Sung Tae's absence presented the perfect opportunity for the witches to brew their magical porridge broth, a process requiring 2 full days. But Sung Tae, wanting to surprise Cho Hong, returned that night, gift in hand. At the porridge shop, the aunt meticulously sealed all doors and windows, preparing for the witches' mystical, earth-infused brewing process. As they began their magical work, Sung Tae arrived home, finding the doors locked. He entered through the back, pushing with all his might. On his way upstairs, he noticed strange lights and sounds emanating from the kitchen. Curiosity piqued, he approached. Hearing him, the witches quickly concealed their magic. Cho Hong rushed out, stopping him from entering. She pulled him upstairs, scolding him for his unannounced intrusion. She explained their heightened security due to constant attempts to steal their secret recipe, reminding him that his actions mirrored those of the spies. A simple heads-up would have avoided the whole situation. Sung Tae, frustrated, explained he'd simply missed her and wanted to surprise her, never expecting such a harsh reaction. Cho Hong, feeling guilty, embraced him from behind, her touch softening his anger. He confessed his desire to know everything about her. Meanwhile, worried Sung Tae might discover their secrets, Cho Hong's aunt retrieved a bottle of 65% alcohol, intending to get him drunk and extract the truth. Sung Tae, surprised by the vintage bottle, inquired about its origins. The aunt claimed it was a gift from an admirer during her glory days. Sung Tae, recognizing its value, estimated it could be worth over 200 million won. The witches, now reluctant to waste such an expensive liquor, quickly hid it away. Cho Hong and Sung Tae, left alone, stole kisses, their affection overflowing, until the aunt's voice startled them. The next day, during a busy lunch rush, an elderly man from a distant village arrived, seeking porridge. Seeing him, Cho Hong's aunt gasped, dropping a tray of bowls. Hiding in a corner, the aunt sobbed quietly. The elderly man approached, mistaking her for someone else. He bid her farewell, leaving the aunt heartbroken that he didn't recognize her, even ignoring his favorite pig's feet dish. He was the aunt's lost love. In her youth, a renowned beauty, she'd captured the hearts of many admirers, from artists to aristocrats. But she fell for a charming rogue, infamous for his scams and infidelities. Blinded by love, she experienced a whirlwind romance. She believed he was her destiny, but upon discovering her magical secret, he'd abandoned her, leaving a deep wound. Unable to bear the resurfacing pain, the aunt retreated, seeking solace. Concerned, the grandmother entrusted the porridge shop to Cho Hong and went to find her sister. Cho Hong, enjoying her newfound freedom and love, found it interrupted by an unexpected guest. Jae Wook, the grandmother, had hired him to help at the porridge shop. Not to be outdone, Sung Tae joined in, creating a tense atmosphere as the two men competed to assist Cho Hong. Even Secretary Kim was dragged into the fray, forced into delivery duty. When Secretary Kim finally protested, exhausted from the 40-degree heat, Cho Hong offered to take over. Neither man would allow it, and their rivalry intensified. Resigned, Cho Hong sent both handsome suitors out on deliveries. That evening, everyone gathered for dinner. Secretary Kim, curious about Jae Wook's comic, asked about the next installment. The main character had discovered his girlfriend was a witch. How would he react? Cho Hong, listening, felt a pang of guilt. Noticing her fatigue, Sung Tae dismissed Secretary Kim and Jae Wook, wanting time alone with Cho Hong. She asked him about his thoughts on Jae Wook's witch love story. Sung Tae scoffed, calling it childish and uninteresting. Cho Hong, angered by his dismissive attitude, lashed out, leaving him confused. Their potential romantic evening was further interrupted by Jae Wook, who declared he would stay the night to protect Cho Hong from Sung Tae's supposed ill intentions. Still annoyed with Sung Tae, Cho Hong didn't object, retreating to her room. Sung Tae, returning to his room, found Jae Wook already in his bed. Unable to dislodge the stubborn artist, they engaged in a passive-aggressive tug of war over the blankets. Later, unable to sleep nestled against Jae Wook, Sung Tae slipped out of bed, only to find Cho Hong still awake. He gently approached her, apologizing for his lack of romantic flair and humor. He reassured her that he loved her, witch or not. and that she needn't worry about him ever leaving her. His love for her, he declared, was more important than anything. Comforted by his heartfelt words, Cho Hong leaned into his embrace. Unseen, Jae-wook, still awake, overheard their exchange, a pang of sadness resonating within him. Meanwhile, Cho Hong's aunt revisited places from her past, reliving her lost love. She arrived at her former lover's house, witnessing him tenderly feeding his wife. He clearly adored his wife, having traveled to the city to buy the aunt's porridge. Just then, the grandmother appeared, dragging her sister home. Despite her heartbreak, the aunt was grateful her sister hadn't erased her memories, allowing her to cherish her past and move forward. The following morning, Cho Hong saw Sung Tae off to work. He clumsily presented her with a necklace he'd bought on his trip, attempting sweet nothings despite his awkwardness. Cho Hong, touched by his gesture, beamed, her witch's mark glowing brighter as she put on the necklace. Later, during a movie date, their unrestrained affection caused a commotion in the theater. Secretary Kim, also present, had to intervene before they finally broke apart. Holding hands, they entered an elevator, oblivious to the out-of-order sign. The elevator lurched and began to fall. They clung to each other in terror. Instinctively, Cho Hong snapped her fingers, stopping the elevator and restoring the lights. Sung Tae witnessed it all. Back home, Cho Hong worried he'd discovered her secret. Sung Tae, equally troubled, recalled her instinctive finger snapping and her drunken confession of being a witch, but dismissed it as drunken ramblings. Just then the grandmother entered, interrupting his thoughts. She'd come to collect the rent and noticed a scar on Sung Tae's chest. He attributed it to a childhood accident, but it triggered a memory for the grandmother. Sung Tae, during his regular checkup, received a clean bill of health. He inquired about the chest scar, but the doctor found no internal evidence of any injury. No trace of the knife wound from his hazy memory. It was, the doctor admitted, a medical mystery. Secretary Kim, aware of their relationship, advised Sung Tae to end it. He feared Sung Tae's mother, capable of anything to protect her son's inheritance, would ruthlessly crush Cho Hong. Sung Tae recalled the strange circumstances surrounding Cho Hong's school transfers. Secretary Kim dismissed them as children's fantasies. Cho Hong stopping a car accident with a snap of her fingers, bullies mysteriously tripping in her presence, a wilting flower reviving as she passed. But Sung Tae remained thoughtful, the pieces of the puzzle slowly falling into place. Meanwhile, Cho Hong, recalling Sung Tae's search, realized the baseball he'd been looking for was under her bed, used as a leg rest. Hesitantly, she asked her grandmother if they had ever harmed a human child with a knife. The grandmother replied that she wouldn't hesitate to eliminate any threat to their kind, leaving Cho Hong worried about a possible connection to Sung Tae's childhood trauma. As Cho Hong sat on her bed, contemplating the baseball, Sung Tae entered. She quickly hid it under her blanket. He, unaware of her inner turmoil, wondered why she hadn't greeted him and assumed she was still upset, taking it out on the furniture. To avoid further questioning, Cho Hong excused herself to prepare dinner. He stopped her, pulling her into a comforting embrace, confessing his deep love. Though happy, Cho Hong remained uneasy. The grandmother, unseen, overheard their exchange. At the dark witch's shop, ominous signs appeared. She visited Cho Hong, warning that the necklace she'd brought was emitting a dangerous aura. Cho Hong explained it was her mother's keepsake, a mother she'd never known. The dark witch alluded to Cho Hong's ill-fated love for a man not destined for her. Cho Hong's aunt overheard, angrily driving the dark witch away. The dark witch, recognizing Cho Hong's grandmother's sister, recalled a past encounter and laughed, relishing Cho Hong's repeating of past mistakes. Both witches now knew Sung Tae wasn't Cho Hong's destined love. Cho Hong insisted she'd chosen him, believing he wouldn't betray her, even knowing her true nature. They demanded she end the relationship, threatening to intervene if she didn't. Just then, Sung Tae arrived home and met with the witch's cold stares. Cho Hong revealed they knew about their relationship. Sung Tae, confused by their hostility, wondered what he'd done wrong. Cho Hong reassured him with a kiss, declaring her feelings were all that mattered. As they were about to deepen the kiss, Sung Tae's mother arrived. She ordered everyone out, then berated Sung Tae, questioning his investigation into his childhood abduction. She warned him to leave the shabby place and the girl, pretending she hadn't seen their intimate moment. His inheritance, she reminded him, was at stake. Cho Hong, overhearing everything, was devastated. She sought solace in Jae-wook, her only friend, the one person who always listened. She removed Sung Tae's necklace, wanting to let go, but her heart refused. Meanwhile, the grandmother and aunt, struck by a sense of familiarity upon seeing Sung Tae's mother, recalled the large scar on Sung Tae's chest. They realized he was the child from all those years ago. Cho Hong, wanting to reveal her secret, took Sung Tae to a park. She returned his necklace, telling him to put it back on herself when he was ready. She had something to show him. Sung Tae, sensing her unease, grew apprehensive. Cho Hong snapped her fingers. The surrounding buildings shimmered with changing lights. Time seemed to freeze, people pausing mid-action. She embraced him, confessing her love and her secret. She then asked, knowing all this, "Will you still love me?" Before Sung Tae could answer, the grandmother and aunt rendered him unconscious. Back at the porridge shop, they examined his scar, confirming his identity. A distraught Cho Hong asked if they were his kidnappers. Realizing he might remember his past, they decided to erase his memories, despite Cho Hong's protests. The aunt, pulling Cho Hong aside, shared her own heartbreak. Even if a man truly loved her, discovering her witch identity would likely lead to rejection, just like Cho Hong's mother. Erasing Sung Tae's memories and resetting their relationship as landlord and tenant was the best solution for both of them. Cho Hong reluctantly agreed. As Sung Tae's memories faded, the truth revealed itself. He'd been kidnapped by his driver, who was trying to blackmail his mother. During their escape, a blindfolded Sung Tae stumbled onto a sharp object, injuring his chest. The driver, terrified, abandoned him. The next morning, Sung Tae summoned Cho Hong to his room. He demanded to know what happened the previous night. While she was still confused, he pointed to a stain on his bed sheets, ordering her to clean it or face eviction. Cho Hong simply asked if he was in pain. When he responded with arrogance, she quietly agreed to clean the sheets, leaving the room with tears in her eyes. His cold demeanor continued through breakfast, confirming his memory loss. Cho Hong reassured the worried witches that she would be fine. As Sung Tae left for work, he handed her a pile of laundry. Cho Hong refused, stating it wasn't part of her duties. He then dropped his necklace. Cho Hong picked it up, telling him to take better care of his belongings. In the car, Sung Tae stared at the necklace, confused. Secretary Kim, sensing the tension, remained silent. Suddenly, a tire blew, causing the car to swerve, and Secretary Kim to slam on the brakes, injuring himself. Secretary Kim, increasingly plagued by bad luck, confided in Sung Tae about a near-death experience in a stalled elevator. Despite the power being off, he'd heard rumors of another couple trapped in the same elevator, miraculously surviving. This triggered a flicker of recognition in Sung Tae, recalling his elevator incident with Cho Hong. Meanwhile, Cho Hong drowned her sorrows with Jae Wook, who cursed Sung Tae under his breath, earning him a scolding from Cho Hong. However, Sung Tae witnessed their seemingly intimate moment, and, fueled by jealousy, stormed out of his car, carrying Cho Hong home, leaving a sighing Jae Wook behind. He carried her to her room. Drunk and emotional, Cho Hong clung to him, confessing she would remember everything for him, even if he couldn't. She pulled him close, kissing him. Just then, the grandmother summoned Sung Tae, offering to trade her valuable liquor collection for his departure. Sung Tae, however, refused, declaring his fondness for the house and rejecting the offer. Back in his room, a sharp pain pierced his chest. He collapsed, just like he had as a child in front of the porridge shop. The aunt, hearing a noise, rushed out in her raincoat to find him lying injured in the rain. With Sung Tae bleeding profusely, she'd gone to the Dark Witch, desperate for help. The Dark Witch had demanded a knife and strands of hair from a young woman and a baby. The aunt had used Cho Hong's hair to save Sung Tae, plunging the enchanted knife into his wound. Because of Cho Hong's hair, Sung Tae now carried a trace of witch blood, explaining his ability to bypass the aunt's protective spells. After the incident, they'd erased his memories, but fragments remained, drawing him back to the house. They now feared the witch blood might render their latest memory wipe ineffective. Cho Hong woke up, mortified by her drunken confession and kiss. The aunt, suspicious of the Dark Witch's motives, recalled how the witch, while seemingly helpful, ultimately stole the powers of other witches, condemning them to a shadowy existence. She doubted the Dark Witch's willingness to help a human child was purely altruistic. Meanwhile, Cho Hong, embarrassed, went to Sung Tae's room to explain, but he mistook it for another confession, infuriating her. He'd confessed first. As Sung Tae left for work, forgetting his phone, Cho Hong rushed after him, just as a car sped toward him. As Sung Tae faced mortal danger, Cho Hong instinctively snapped her fingers, using her magic to save him. Seeing her distraught, he pulled her into a comforting embrace, reassuring her he was fine. The entire scene played out in public view. At the Dark Witch's shop, her sinister plan surrounding Sung Tae's childhood rescue began to unfold. Her curse was taking hold. Observing Sung Tae's affectionate behavior towards Cho Hong, the three witches gathered. They realized his memories hadn't been fully erased. Cho Hong finally learned the truth. Her grandmother and aunt had used their magic to save Sung Tae, not harm him. The effort had weakened their powers, affecting the porridge recipe and forcing a temporary closure. Cho Hong, touched, embraced her grandmother, grateful for their act of kindness. She resolved to protect them and, for their sake, end her relationship with Sung Tae. Meanwhile, Sung Tae's memories flooded back. He remembered his kidnapper, his driver, the man he'd believed was his savior. The driver had used him as a pawn to blackmail his family, putting him in mortal danger. The scar on his chest was a constant reminder. Sung Tae called Cho Hong, asking her to bring a forgotten file to his office, suggesting lunch. But Cho Hong, determined to end things, offered to repay the deposit so he could move out. Sung Tae feigned ignorance, insisting he loved the house and wouldn't leave, reminding her that, as the landlord, he was under no obligation to obey her. Cho Hong sighed, accepting the inevitable confrontation. Sung Tae, seeing through her facade, grew concerned. Sung Tae's mother arrived, ordering him to prepare for an overseas assignment, paving the way for his promotion. Sung Tae refused, revealing a shocking truth. He remembered everything, including his mother's role in his kidnapping. She had orchestrated the abduction to test her husband's loyalty, using her son's life as leverage. Though his father, guilt-ridden, had remained with her, Sung Tae couldn't forgive her actions. He denounced her, threatening to sever all ties. Just then, Sung Tae clutched his chest in agony, collapsing to the floor. Elsewhere, the grandmother and aunt uncovered the Dark Witch's deception. She hadn't cured Sung Tae as a child, merely postponed his death. Learning the truth would trigger the curse. Cho Hong, overhearing this, was horrified. At that moment, she received a frantic call from Secretary Kim. Sung Tae was in critical condition. Seeing Sung Tae comatose, Cho Hong confronted the Dark Witch, who, seeing her desperation, was reminded of Cho Hong's mother, who had similarly pleaded for a dying man. Fueled by rage, Cho Hong attacked the Dark Witch, destroying her collection of stolen magical powers. The Dark Witch retaliated. The grandmother and aunt arrived just in time, using the Dark Witch's attack to shatter the remaining power vials. The dark curse was broken, releasing the stolen magic, including Sung Tae's. He miraculously awoke. Upon returning home, they found the porridge shop abandoned. Despite Secretary Kim's efforts, the witches were nowhere to be found. Sung Tae returned to the empty house, memories flooding back. Jae Wook, also searching for Cho Hong, found only a comforting note. The two men, heartbroken, shared a drink. A year later, after a relentless search, Sung Tae found them, the super-powered porridge delivery girl and the two witches, running a small food stall. He confessed he'd never forgotten her, the woman who saved his life twice. Cho Hong feigned ignorance. Sung Tae produced the necklace, promising to put it on her, urging her to come home. They shared a passionate kiss in the bustling marketplace. The chicken restaurant owner, once a porridge thief, had developed his famous recipe, finding success in his way. Jae Wook, through perseverance, became a top comic book artist. And the witches? They lived happily together, albeit slightly exasperated by the constant displays of affection from the reunited couple. They were happy, nonetheless. Witches and magic may be a mystery, but perhaps they exist among us, creating everyday miracles with their extraordinary abilities. Don't underestimate the seemingly ordinary. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more exciting content.